You've probably heard this before. Don't chase her, let her come to you. But what if I told you there's a dark, powerful art behind ignoring a woman that could shift the entire dynamic in your favor? Sounds controversial, right? Well, buckle up because we're diving deep into the psychology of ignoring a woman. And no, it's not just about playing games. It's about understanding the mind, testing her emotions, and creating an irresistible attraction. Now, before you rush to conclusions, this isn't about ignoring her to manipulate or hurt her. It's about leveraging attention in a way that gets you noticed, respected, and desired. Women, just like men, are driven by their own complex psychology, and sometimes pulling back emotionally can actually bring them closer. But here's the catch. If you don't understand the fine line between playing hard to get and actually disrespecting her, you could lose everything. This isn't about being an asshole. It's about being strategic. Ignoring a woman correctly can be the key to getting the results you want without falling into the trap of chasing or losing control. So let's take a deep dive into this art of psychology and break it down into sections that will make you a master of attraction and influence. Ready to unlock the power of ignoring her? Let's get started. 1. Why ignoring works. The power of absence. Here's a truth many men don't want to admit. Absence is one of the most powerful tools you can use in the attraction game. When you ignore a woman, you're not being disrespectful or playing childish games. You're tapping into a primal, psychological trigger, the fear of loss. This is something people instinctively understand. If something is easy to get, it becomes less valuable. But when it's scarce, it suddenly becomes more desirable. When you disappear for a bit, she starts to wonder where you are, what you're doing, and why you're not giving her the attention you once did. That curiosity creates a magnetic pull toward you. She starts seeking your validation, and the emotional dynamic shifts. You've stopped being the man who's always available, and now you've become the mystery she can't quite solve. Think about this. Imagine you're always texting her, checking in, and answering her calls right away. She'll get used to it. You become predictable, and in the back of her mind, she might even take you for granted. Now imagine if you suddenly pulled back, stopped replying immediately, maybe even went a few hours without texting. Suddenly, you're not a constant in her life, and her brain starts filling in the gaps. Is he with someone else? Is he losing interest? This sudden absence forces her to reevaluate you and the value you bring to her life. It doesn't mean you're playing hard to get in an immature way, but rather creating space for her to feel what it's like to not have you around. And when you do reappear, that absence makes you stand out more, and her attraction heightens. So don't underestimate the power of stepping back for a moment. It's a strategy that's as simple as it is effective. The psychology of attraction, playing hard to get is a classic move in the dating world. But here's the twist. It's not about acting disinterested or sending mixed signals. It's about creating value through your absence. Women are naturally drawn to men who seem like they have other priorities, goals, and a life outside of her. Why? Because it signals that you're a man who doesn't need her validation to feel good about himself. When you're constantly available, you actually lower your perceived value. The key to attraction is making her feel like you're someone who could walk away at any time, someone who has options. Playing hard to get is about keeping a bit of mystery. You don't give her all the answers right away. Instead, you keep her guessing, wondering what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're not all over her. Think about how she reacts when you don't respond immediately to a text or make her wait a little for a date. At first, she might get frustrated or anxious, but soon that tension builds into attraction. The more you hold back, the more she starts to wonder if you're the right fit for her. It sparks a feeling that she might not be the one in control anymore, which often leads to more desire. Women like a challenge, and when you give off the vibe that you're not easily accessible, it makes you that much more intriguing. The secret is not to overdo it. You want to create that tension and desire, but without pushing her too far. When she senses that you're not desperate for her attention, she's more likely to work harder for it, and in the process, her attraction to you will skyrocket. 3. Creating emotional tension. How ignoring triggers desire. When you ignore a woman, you create something crucial in the dynamic: emotional tension. The idea is simple. When there's space between you, she begins to feel a void. And humans, by nature, don't like feeling incomplete. This tension is what makes her want to fill the gap. And in doing so, she subconsciously starts to crave your attention more. You've probably noticed that when someone's always around, it's easy to take them for granted. You know they'll always reply to your texts or show up when you need them. But when someone isn't always accessible, there's a sense of urgency that builds up. Every time you're not immediately available, it's like adding a little bit of suspense to the situation, making her wonder when you'll respond, what you're up to, and why you're not as eager as before. It's this kind of uncertainty that triggers desire. She starts to question how much you really like her, and the emotional distance creates a powerful push-pull effect. In her mind, she'll start thinking, why isn't he responding? What's going on? Does he like me? Am I losing him? This internal questioning stirs up feelings that make her want to close the emotional gap, which of course brings her closer to you. Ignoring her isn't about being cruel, it's about letting her feel something. When you withdraw a little, you give her the space to miss you. Emotional tension isn't something you can force, but when used correctly, it naturally draws her in. This strategy works because it taps into the way our brains react to uncertainty. With curiosity, attraction, and eventually, longing. The danger of overdoing it: don't cross the line. Here's the thing most guys don't get. Ignoring a woman can be powerful, but if you overdo it, you're digging your own grave. Too many men think playing hard to get means disappearing for days or even weeks, hoping that silence will automatically lead to attraction. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. This is where most guys fail. Let's be real. If you ignore her to the point where she feels disrespected or like she's not worth your time, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Women aren't interested in men who play childish mind games. They're interested in men who are emotionally mature and balanced. You need to be aware of the line between creating tension and being completely absent. Disappearing for too long or ignoring her too often can make her lose interest. Not because she's playing games, but because she starts feeling like you don't value her at all. This is where a lot of men go wrong. They think they're being mysterious, but in reality, they're just being inconsiderate and childish. You can't keep a woman hooked by treating her like a backup option. If you're consistently pulling away or acting aloof without a reason, she'll eventually move on. Simple as that. So wake up, guys. The art of ignoring isn't about being cold or distant. It's about creating space to spark her curiosity, not to push her away. Understand that ignoring should be strategic and not overdone. Too much of it signals a lack of respect, which is never attractive. If you can learn to balance your attention and withdraw just enough to create that desire, you'll keep her intrigued without crossing the line into irrelevance. 5. How ignoring tests her investment. Is she really interested? Here's a crucial point that many men overlook. When you pull back and ignore a woman for a while, you're actually testing how much she is invested in the relationship. Women, like men, want to feel desired and valued, but they also need to know that the effort they put in is reciprocated. By withdrawing a little, you create a situation where she has to ask herself, is he still into me? Should I make more effort? This is where the real test begins. If a woman is truly interested, she'll start pursuing you more. She'll reach out, try to engage with you, and put in more effort to keep the connection alive. The key here is that she will chase a little bit, but only if she's emotionally invested in you. If you're constantly available and giving her everything on a silver platter, she'll never feel the need to put in any real effort. You'll be a comfortable option, not someone she has to work for. Now, don't get this confused with playing games or trying to manipulate her. It's not about making her chase you just for the sake of it. It's about seeing if she's genuinely interested in making the relationship work. If she's emotionally invested, she'll reach out, ask questions, and initiate contact. If she doesn't, well, that's your sign to move on. It's a reality check. Ignoring a woman in this way forces her to show whether she values you enough to make the effort, or if she's just taking you for granted. And here's the truth, men. If you don't see any effort or desire from her after you pull back, it's time to stop wasting your time. 6. Using ignoring to build respect. Stop being a doormat. Here's where most men fail miserably. They think that ignoring a woman will make her chase them, but in reality, it can also help build respect. If you're constantly at her beck and call, always dropping everything to accommodate her needs, you're not a man she can respect. Instead, you're a doormat. And no woman wants to be with a man she can walk all over. When you use ignoring strategically, you're showing that your time, attention, and energy are valuable. You're teaching her that you're not going to be at her disposal 24/7, and you're not going to tolerate being treated like an afterthought. Respect is a huge part of attraction, and women are naturally drawn to men who have boundaries and self-respect. You need to stop putting her on a pedestal, always ready to drop everything when she calls. She doesn't need to feel like the center of your universe at all times. In fact, when you give her the space to miss you, you're showing her that you have your own life, your own priorities. And when you come back into the picture, you're more desirable because you've made her feel that your time isn't something to be taken for granted. But here's the thing. This doesn't mean you ignore her to the point where she feels unimportant. There's a fine line between creating respect and pushing her away. It's about balance. If she sees that you have your own passions and commitments outside of her, she'll begin to admire you more. This is how respect is built. When you stop being a doormat and start respecting yourself, she will start respecting you in return. So here's the bold truth. Ignoring a woman the right way isn't manipulation. It's an act of self-respect that forces her to see your value. If you're always available, you're not a man of value. You're just an option. Let that sink in. Stop giving your time away for free and learn to create boundaries that make her earn your attention. If you play it right, she'll be the one chasing after you, not the other way around. Now, this might stir up some strong reactions. Some of you might be thinking, that sounds cold, or why should I play these games? But think about it. How many times have you given everything and ended up feeling taken for granted? This isn't a game. It's about shifting the dynamic and making sure you're respected, not used. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Drop a comment below and let me know how ignoring or pulling back has worked for you. Do you think it's a strategy that builds desire, or is it a risky move that could backfire? I'll be reading and engaging with your comments, building a connection with you. Because let's face it, we're all learning and growing in this game of attraction.